Hi, everyone. So the topic that I chose to study for the entire semester was about COVID-19 information on social media and how to assess the trustworthiness of COVID-19 information. So for my introduction, first off, my research question was, how do people assess trustworthy information about COVID-19 on social media? And I wanted to study this topic because I had been seeing a lot of false information floating around, and I wanted to see how other people think and see how other people assess this information and decide whether or not it's true or trustworthy. This is an important topic to study because people must be aware that there's false information being spread around and they could possibly be susceptible to believing it. We need to figure out ways to prevent this from continuing to happen. So for my methodology, I used a survey to collect my data. This was the best method for me because I wanted to collect all the answers of many people to conclude how overall people will react and assess the trustworthy information. The population I wish to study was anyone who uses social media, and the sample I used was a convenience sample of people I know, both from my classes at Rider University and also people that I know at work. I would send it out to anyone who I know uses social media. And I used Google Forms to curate my survey, and I also shared the link either via email or via text to my sample. So the results of my study, my first variable was sources of information, and you could see two of my most important questions here. The first question, I am more inclined to trust information on social media about COVID-19 that has been posted by a verified account. And the next question, on a scale of 1 to 10, how trustworthy do you believe information about COVID-19 is that's posted by news accounts on social media? And there you could see the results. They're pretty interesting. For variable 2, I chose the use of social media. So for this question, it says, do you see reliable information about COVID-19 on social media? And actually 47.2% said no, and 52.8% answered yes. My third variable was topics related to COVID-19. So my first question was, which COVID-19 topics did you find the most trustworthy information on social media? And these topics included mask wearing, case numbers, death totals, vaccines, lockdowns, or none. And the next question related to topics was, have you received information on social media that would convince you to trust getting the COVID-19 vaccine? And 41.7% answered no, 58.3% answered yes, which is pretty interesting. For my results, my first hypothesis, which is if a social media account that is verified releases information about the COVID-19 pandemic, the more likely the information is to be trustworthy to all social media users, was actually supported in that data that you can see on the slide. In hypothesis 2, my hypothesis was, depending on the type of social media platform that was looked at, people will be able to determine if they're able to assess trustworthy information about COVID-19. And that one was actually not supported, and that was also shown in the data. And hypothesis 3, if COVID-19 vaccines is the topic that's talked about on social media, the more trusting people will be with that information. And that hypothesis was also supported as well. So for my open-ended question, I decided to ask the respondents to share a personal experience where they might have been misinformed during the pandemic or a myth that they've heard about COVID-19. So some notable answers were people saying that there would be a second lockdown, case numbers and false positive tests. You can't get COVID more than once, you can't breathe through masks, hearing that the vaccine had no symptoms, and actually one respondent said that they were not affected by misinformation. So my results compared and contrasted with the literature I reviewed in many following ways. First off, in the article, the COVID-19 infodemic combating dangerous misinformation on social media, it was described that most false information is seen on text-focused channels like Facebook and Twitter. And this was actually not supported in my data because of my question on which platform do you believe you received the most trustworthy information about COVID-19. And 61% answered Twitter and 25% answered Facebook. So the majority of them actually stated that they see the most trustworthy information on those websites. I definitely find it more interesting that the results showed that 58% of people actually trust the vaccine after seeing information about it, because I personally have seen a lot of scary information about side effects and things like that, which would steer people away from it. So I was surprised. And it's also interesting to see the results of the open-ended question and the array of different false information that respondents have seen that I personally haven't seen. This information can be applied to the real world in the following ways. People first can determine what information they prefer to look at now. And also, it's more important to look at what the CDC is actually doing in order to ensure that only true information is being spread. So, in conclusion, my research question again was, how do people assess trustworthy information about COVID-19 on social media? My results found that it is different for everyone, as everyone has their own personal information and beliefs, and they may not believe information as they choose. I can draw the conclusion that people trust information on social media if it's posted by a more reputable source that's possibly verified or has credentials. And this information is important to know because there are a lot of different variables that contribute to how people assess trustworthy information. And CDC sites should look into this and make sure people don't have to guess whether or not something is true. So, some limitations to my research. First, there was not a lot of time to collect data because it was only a semester long. Also, I only had 36 respondents, which was also due to time restraints. So I don't have enough people to speak for an entire population. And also for some questions, people might not have had the option to answer it a certain way that they wanted to. So we don't know what their true answer would be. And for future research, I would suggest creating a survey with more qualitative answers to allow respondents to accurately say what they believe rather than using a convenient sample. Maybe people could use more specific groups of people. Focusing on one particular social media site might also make for more in-depth research, and also possibly using more methodologies would fit this kind of research, like more surveys or maybe interviews to get more in-depth responses would also be a good idea for future research. So that's it. Thank you so much.